On June 17, 1861, 2 months after the Confederate salvos on Fort Sumter, Professor Thaddeus Lowe, accompanied by a local telegrapher and supervisor, entered the gondola of his newly built gas-inflated balloon, the Enterprise, and drifted upwards over the National Mall in Washington, D.C. From a height of 500 feet and with a visible range of 50 miles in all directions, Lowe telegraphed President Abraham Lincoln and General Winfield Scott that he wished to demonstrate how the science of aeronautics could be of military service to his country. Standing at the East Room window, President Lincoln, who had briefly been introduced to the professor days earlier, requested that Lowe come down and see him immediately.
They hauled the balloon down, they walked it down the mall and around the corner to the White House. Lincoln came out, Lowe talked to him. Again, Lincoln is so fascinated. Lowe tells us that Lincoln got him to spend the night at the White House so they could continue to talk. And the next morning, Lincoln just says, let's do this thing. I'll give you your backing. Go to it.
And with that, the very first use of aeronautics in American warfare was born. Thaddeus Sobieski Constantine Lowe was primarily self-educated, particularly in his main interests of engineering and chemistry. In his teenage years, he became fascinated by balloon flight, and by his mid-20s, Lowe was known as one of the leading balloon aeronauts in America. He was also very much an entrepreneur and showman. In early 1860, Lowe built a large gas balloon called the City of New York, which he intended to use for the very first manned transatlantic ocean flight. Advised by the Secretary of the Smithsonian, Joseph Henry, to attempt a trial flight over land first, Lowe ascended in the spring of 1861 from the outskirts of Cincinnati, Ohio, headed toward the eastern seaboard. Primarily riding high winds at 18,000 feet, the freezing Lowe had no idea that the winds had actually blown him more to the south than the east.
And when he saw the blue strip of the ocean, he knew he needed to come down. Unfortunately, he came down in South Carolina just a week or a few days after Fort Sumter. So not only was a war going on, but he was in South Carolina where it started. And he got out of his balloon, and he had Cincinnati, Ohio newspapers in the balloon, and he had a gun. The locals thought he was a spy, so they arrested him, but he was able to get them to take him to Columbia, and there were scientists at the university who knew who he was, and they released him, and he went back north. But he learned from the experience that A, the South meant business. This was going to be a serious conflict. And B, he saw how the balloon could definitely be used to spy on Confederate troops.
Well, I had this idea to create an interactive balloon exhibit because we are a living history museum and our mission is to inspire excitement and curiosity about the past and an appreciation for its relevance today. So anything that provides an educational, entertaining experience and is also gets the historical narrative across is obviously of interest to us. And a balloon had never been replicated anywhere in the country before. And this is a piece of history that most Americans are unaware of. But it really was, in many ways, the origin of the United States Air Force. First time that balloons had been used extensively for reconnaissance in warfare. So that's really how the idea came together. And at this point, we're a couple of months in, and the balloon is starting to be manufactured in different parts of the country. So we're real excited to see it come together. One of the things that made the balloon practical was the fact that we're able today to use a very high-tech modern fabric that is able to trap the helium atom, which is extremely small. They'll cut segments of the balloon, rather like segments of an orange, and then weld it together using a high-tech glue that literally combines the two pieces of plastic. So you end up with a seamless envelope that will hold gas very well.